Camilla Belich.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to take a call in the general debate, and I want to use the 5 minutes that I have to make a challenge to the House around an issue that has been ignored by New Zealand for too long, and that is the very important issue of modern slavery. Mr Speaker, there is an urgent need to combat modern slavery and trafficking for persons in New Zealand. Billions of dollars in New Zealand are spent on supply chains connected with modern slavery. The Global Slavery Index estimates that around 8,000 people in New Zealand each day are in situations of modern slavery. And unknowingly, each New Zealand household is spending around $77 per week on goods associated with forced labour. Our money that we spend in New Zealand is affecting the human rights and the lives of real people, both here and overseas. This is an issue which is not new to this Parliament, and it's also not something I think that most people in this Parliament disagree on. There has been a significant amount of work done to try and make sure that New Zealand has modern slavery legislation that meets the needs of not only our moral duty to address it here, but also overseas, and also address some of the important commitments that we've made to overseas partners. And I want to acknowledge the work that was done under the previous Labor government of the Modern Slavery Leadership Advisory Group, and I want to acknowledge the work that's been done since the change of government by the Modern Slavery Trafficking Expert Practitioners Group. Now, this is a voluntary group that got together and saw that there was a high degree of political consensus around this issue in New Zealand, and had the skills and the foresight and the conviction to draft legislation that could be introduced to this House if this House would so will it on modern slavery. And I commend that group for taking practical steps to ensure that this House, if we can find a way on this issue, can introduce laws on modern slavery as soon as possible, possibly even next Members' Day. The bill that they have drafted, I have put in the ballot as a Members' Bill in my name, but I want to be clear, Mr Speaker, this is an issue which isn't something that I advocate on my own as an MP or on behalf of the Labour Party. It is something that all members of this House have an obligation to address, and it's something that there have been many overtures across the House to try and find a way forward on this issue. And so I say again to any member of this House who is committed to ending this terrible practice of modern slavery, let's find a way forward to try and make sure that New Zealand has laws that prevent this terrible practice both here and abroad. The bill that I have put in is a comprehensive bill. It establishes a reporting register, but it also establishes things that would support victims of modern slavery when they are identified in New Zealand, like certification of the fact of being modern slaves and assistance. It also puts in place review provisions so we can make sure that this legislation is the best that it possibly can be. Mr Speaker, it won't be news to anyone in this House that New Zealand is not a leader in this area. In fact, modern slavery legislation is in place in many other countries around the world that New Zealand would look to, in places like Australia, in places like the United Kingdom, in places like Canada. Those countries have put in place different pieces of legislation that address modern slavery, and many companies that work in New Zealand are actually subjected to laws banning modern slavery already because they trade in other countries. It's time that New Zealand stood up to this terrible practice and stood up also to our international obligations that we have in the EU Fair Trade Agreement that requires us to put in place modern slavery legislation, and the UK FTA as well, which also requires us to do this. Mr Speaker, this issue has gone on for too long without a response from this Parliament. The legislation is here, it's ready. All it is waiting for is the political will of this House to make it happen. On this side of the House, we have already told the Prime Minister we are willing to support legislation on modern slavery to get this issue solved. We ask members across the House and across the Parliament to recognise that this has gone on too long that the time is right and New Zealand must stand up to this terrible practice of modern slavery. It is time.
Reuben Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to take a call in this general debate and to use it as an opportunity to shine a light on our science, innovation and technology sector, or as they are known to our current government, the cut sector, because that is all that we are seeing for people who work in our science, innovation and tech sector and in those communities. There is no vision and there is no leadership from this government in this space. Our Crown Research Institutes have been restructured into public research organisations and in the process gutted of public good science. This has driven our best and brightest talent, some of our best and brightest talent, I should say, offshore, and is creating confusion and fear within those research institutions. At a very simple level, there are so many challenges with the current merger between our CRIs, our Crown Research Institutions. And there's huge insecurity in their very, very precious and vital workforce, with looming restructures expected in a further 12 to 18 months. This means that our overseas institutions and corporate sector locally are actively recruiting the talent out of this sector. And there are inconsistent policies between CRIs in the merger that are now making things difficult. So this government came in, wiped out social sciences, took away the time for our brightest innovators to spend time at the bench doing the science and having blue skies research. The best thing that you can hear in a lab is someone saying that shouldn't happen. And at the moment, the opportunity for people to have those unexpected discoveries is being taken away by this government. It was summed up best by a person I spoke to in the science community who said to me they cannot look graduates in the eye and tell them that it is worth pursuing a job locally or study locally. Their best advice to graduates is get overseas now while there are still jobs there. And that is a shameful state of affairs for our science, innovation and technology community. Now, another area in which there is work taking place is in a gene tech bill, arguably the most significant piece of scientific legislation that we may see in our lifetime. But this is loose and dangerous from this government. And if you don't believe me, read the submissions. There are a huge number of them, especially given the narrow window of time available to submitters. But so many are left behind. Lack of Māori representation, lack of economic analysis, and poor regulation. It's a worry to see a bill being brought forward that is so out of step with where the rest of the world is at. And the other thing I wanted to touch on, which has caused deep concern in our science, innovation and technology community, is the government's AI strategy, if you can call it that. Because this is not a blueprint, it is a retrospective spec sheet. It has spelling mistakes, it has hallucinations, it's not preparing New Zealanders for the future at all. And if you don't believe me, as some members on the other side of the House seem to be calling out, then listen to the voice of the very sector affected by it. Our academic community describe it as all hype and no vision, or the AI strategy that sets a dangerous path forward for New Zealand with an attitude of economic growth above social good. And if that bellowing member is happy with that, he should have a good think about it. The tech sector says no targets, and we know it is about the frickin' targets, no action plan, no national AI vision, no multi-data sovereignty, no target investment, no definition of success, buck passed to business to drive. That is the assessment of the AI strategy that this government is calling a strategy and is nothing more than a poor piece of ChatGPT.